Hello, welcome to this channel where I fix stuff. I don't usually do unboxing videos, but because of what this is, I figured I'd do it on this one. So this is a completely, or mostly completely disassembled Marchant XL Calculator that I purchased off eBay in its disassembled state. We're going to see if we can put it back together. We'll start by seeing what we've got here. So, got the back plate here, the nice old style Marchant logo, the stamped brass one. Also got the nice stamped brass one on the front there, and most of the colors are there. Some of the colors missing there a little bit, but overall not too bad really. Just roll that out of the way, set that off to the side. So the story behind this, here's the bottom cover that goes on the front, and then here goes the register ratchet knob thing. So the story behind this is someone got this with the intention of repairing it, took it apart, and decided that it wasn't worth repairing, and this is why. So I've done videos on Marchant calculators before, and a common issue with them is this drum. All of these like pieces here are made out of pot metal, and as you can see they expand. So see, here's some scraping where it was either rubbing or someone had tried to file it down. I'm not sure which, but most likely it was rubbing on the adjacent parts, which we can take a look at in a minute in the box. So what happens with these is these expand over time. They deform and crack. You can see how this one is bent. See, here there's a gap on this side, and then there's a gap on this side. So the whole metal piece has kind of like keeled over a little bit, which may cause an issue if there's something that's supposed to slide there. I'll have to double check. It's been a little bit since I worked on one of these. Probably we can put this back together. It was like he marked here which ones were the bad ones, or maybe these were the good ones, the rest are the bad ones. Anyway, we'll see. So these are the carry actuators for the counter register. So let's see which ones are these here. That one's stuck, see? That one can't even move it. That one's somewhat stuck. And that one's stuck. You can see how there's a crack there, the metal starting to separate. So we'll see what we can do with this. I think the last time I worked on one of these machines, just one of these had a serious issue, and I just ended up removing it because the machine will work fine without the counter on the carry register. Just say the carry on the counter register. But this time we'll see if we can fix these and get it to be 100%. But I tend to use the machine for all four operations: multiplication, subtraction, addition, and division. You don't actually need this to be fully operational, as in you can, like, these don't need to work for you to do all four operations, but it's just a nice to have. Is the original functionality of the machine, so we'll see if we can restore it on this one. So anyway, that's for later. Let's see what else you've got in here, but that's just some of the background here. So there's some of the stuff here. Let's see what this one is. Probably the main pinwheel drum. It feels kind of heavy. Yes, I do believe it is. Yep. So this is the main pinwheel drum here. You've seen my other Marchant XL video or my Marchant XLI video. This should be pretty familiar to you. So these spin around, and the segments, where are they? Here they are. You can see the segment here on the bottom. Well, that one raises out right there and drops in there. So you can see how it pops out. So as this drum rotates in the machine, the position of this lever determines where this pops out at, and that determines how many teeth engage to drive the accumulator forward. we'll set that off to the side. Make sure we're not going to set it on any of the display pieces. We'll see what's next here. This is probably the counter. Yes, so this is the counter, and these are the counter carry sets. See if we can activate one here. Yeah, see? So see that one popped out? I'll show it this way. So those pop out and latch when this rotates past 0 in either direction. And the idea being, when this piece spins around, the little trip there will catch. And see, it pushes that pin. This is the stuck one. That's the good one. So the little, this has to go in like that. And then as this spins around, see how it pushes that over? And it will drive the next wheel forward one position, or back, or backwards, depending on which direction you're turning the crank. And then go backwards for subtraction. So as these deform and swell up, they're not going to mesh nicely in here anymore. It was in like something like that. I'll just knock this off the end. Make sure that goes on the right way. So as these, swell up and deform, they're not going to work properly. And so you can see how these drums here are directly against. I mean, they might not be directly against when it's in the correct position, but they're in close proximity to these driver gears here. So any swelling on these, they'll contact these, and you can see the effects of that here, where it's been scraping there. So that's the issue with these machines. Set that off to the side. We've got a bag of miscellaneous parts, so I see some cranks, screws. This one piece right here is the carry direction ratchet. This would be the main crank. There's a little crank there for the probably the carry, or the counter clear rather. Should be a crank, or it could be also the accumulator clear too. There should be a crank for that too. Go the other way. This is probably the base. Well, this is the side plate. Open this up here. So we've got all the pieces. There should be no reason why I can't put this back together. So we've got one side plate here. The attached gear. This piece here is where the carriage bed rests on, and then see, this would be the other right side. So one of these holes, oh, there's a glass washer there to figure out where that goes, either here or there. That'll be interesting. So yeah, probably this would be where the main drive crank comes in, and then this would be where the probably where that drum goes actually. Where, oh, there must be a shaft that goes in there then. See, this is a key on the end, so it can't go right up against that. So, we'll see. Probably goes on this way then. I believe it does. Go on this way, and then these two gears will mesh, so when you turn the main crank, it spins this as well. And then this right here is the carriage lockout, so you can't turn the machine when the carriage is not in a latched in position, and also you can't move the carriage when the machine is not in its home position, when the main crank is on its home position. We've got that side, we've got like you got the other side. No, this is the central piece. So this goes in between the counter and the main drive. Looks like this is another carriage lock here actually. The cutout there, so the carriage will slide through that when this is in this position, but when you start turning the crank, then there's like slots in the carriage this goes into, so you can't move the carriage when the machine is not in this position. And like vice versa, this won't turn unless the carriage, unless one of those slots in the carriage is lined up here, so it's kind of like a double lockout thing. Got the middle piece, and then the other piece here, which is difficult. The other piece here with our all-important bell ringer. This is the ratchet for making sure, like, once you start turning the hand crank, you can't go backwards until you complete the cycle. That's what that's for. Yeah, this is probably the carriage itself. Yes, it is. So we've got these pieces. This is one of the bed plate caps. So the carriage goes on, and then the underside of this, so the carriage goes down on the bed plate, and then this goes on top of the tabs on the carriage, so you can't like lift it off. And this is part for the pointer. So this will engage with a gear against the carriage, and as you move the carriage, this slides back and forth in like the opposite direction to move the pointer that points to the current position on the counter register. This is the carriage bed plate, and there's that gear I was talking about. So she feels kind of, it's okay. So as the carriage slides like one direction, it spins this gear and pushes that rod the other direction. I'll set that over here. And here is the carriage, and it has its clearing handle still attached actually. Clear it out. This is bent, I don't like that. It's the decimal pointer thing, hopefully it won't be too hard to bend it back. This is actually a nice condition here. Usually when you get these are all pretty rusty, but this one's pretty nice actually. It's nice and shiny yet. This is the knob for you to, it's loose, for you to manually pull the carriage. And then here's that, those teeth I was talking about that will engage with that gear on the bed plate. And then here's that other piece I was talking about with the slots. This is what will line up with the bite out of that wheel. And then when you start turning the handle, the wheel will slide through here so you can't move the carriage unless it's in the home position. Or I should say when the machine is in the, when it's not doing an operation. So another piece of the carriage top plate looks like. This is the carriage ratchet thing. So that handle go on to something here. Must be another piece that like grabs onto this or something. This thing is pretty loose. Sure, I like that. But this is what ratchets the carriage either direction. This is really loose. Let's see if I can tighten that down somewhere. I don't like how loose that is. And I'll just stab myself with a spring. That's nice. Actually, a broken spring there. Just stabbed me. So we'll have to see. It's probably not appropriate. Let's see about that. Some miscellaneous parts here. This will be the clearing thing. So this has two arms that go here and here, and then a spring loaded down against the case here, and then you can like lift it up, and that pushes all the levers home. That's for. We've got this piece, which is the detents for all of the sliders. Goes down in the bottom. What else you've got this shaft. I think this is an intermediate shaft. Remember? Oh yeah, this is the counter increment. I remember this piece. So this goes around, and then this little finger here increments the lowest position of the counter by one position each time this goes around, or decrements for division, or for subtraction rather. So that will go, maybe that goes here. I'll have to see. See where all these pieces go, but got the basic idea of where everything goes. This, I don't know where it goes, but we'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll see. It'll come together. Not sure where that goes. This, not too sure where this goes either. Kind of stiff forever. It has a spring on it. I wonder, this might be the carriage release, probably. There should be a button on the side of the machine you push to free up the carriage. I wonder if this is related to that. We'll see. And this probably looks like part of the carriage. I think, yeah, this should go here on the front of the carriage. That. I have to take this out to get the carriage, I believe, because see, this plate here has this lump in the middle of it, and that lump goes in here, so that's your carriage stops, or at least one of the carriage stops. So you have to take this out, or both to get the carriage off. So we'll set that aside as well. This is the carriage release, actually. This is the button that sticks out the side, and then you push this to... It's kind of bent, actually. I'll have to check about that. Maybe it's supposed to be. Got this. This looks like it's part of the direction thing. So see this angled thing here? So this will slide this back and forth, depending on whether you want the counter to count for addition or count for subtraction. It has that option. Looks like that's about it for the box. Here's the base plate. So there's a base plate with our bell. All the feet are gone. It's unfortunate. Looks like they were taken off because see, there's screws there. None of the screws are left. Usually these things are all mushed over anyway. I always like these old style bases have these little tiny ouches in the side. It's kind of cool. So you always have longer ones, you know, for the whole that arch, but I always think these little tiny arches in the side are kind of cool. Anyway, so that's it. Don't have any real concerns so far, really. Like this will go here. Little dowel pins in them. That this one goes here. Somewhere in there. There's our bell. This one goes here in the middle. So obviously you can't put these on like this right now because like this drum has to go in here. The counters go in around here somewhere. I think like this actually. So a screw on the side there. Alright, something like that. They'll go in. There's a screw in here too that probably goes in the top of this thing. This is the shaft that goes out the side, so should be fine. So you can put this in. like that. That's where that goes. And then this drum will go. I'll keep using this piece. This drum will go somewhere like down around in there. I do believe in this piece slides back and forth according to this piece. Yeah, so like this goes on here like this, and then when you slide that lever, it'll slide back and forth. That's another thing too, unless that's in here. Hopefully that's in here. There should be a lever that sticks out here for switching that. See if we can identify. I think that's this. No, so this piece is the piece that goes on the end of this, and then that slides back and forth to point at your different counter positions. Actually don't see that yet. It may just be I haven't quite identified it, unless it's already in here. Maybe? This might be it. I have to see. Yeah, I think this is it actually. This will be the spring-loaded one for the clearing lever. So that'll go in here like this, and then of course this will be like, you know, spring-loaded down there. Oh, here's the other piece of that spring that broke off and stabbed me. So let's see if we can find a placement spring for that. And then this will be that lever. So this will be actually be up here somewhere, and then let's see, there's this angled piece here, but will go in this slotted piece here, and then when this moves, like when it moves over the bump like that, it'll slide this back and forth. It's kind of hard to show when everything is all loose like this, but hopefully I'll be able to give a better idea as this goes back together. So, so that piece is there. Should be another one like this that goes on this side. Do you believe? Show exactly where that is. I can go through too and make sure there's nothing, you know, stuck in any of these bags anywhere. So that we have all the pieces. Yeah, there should be anything that goes there. Oh, you know what? It's on here. That's right. Here it is right here. Doesn't go all the way at the end. It goes right here because that bar doesn't reach all the way to the end. So that's fine. So we've got one brass washer here that fell off of this side. I see another 2 brass washers in the random parts pile here. There's 2 there. There's these things. Let's see where those go. There's a little spacer here. See where that goes. This thing. Not sure where that goes. Hopefully this wasn't taper pinned in or something. I do see a taper pin here. Have to see where that went. And another taper pin here. Okay, so we've got 2 taper pins, another large pin. Let's see where that goes. Oh, like older style snap rings. Like this is before they really had snap rings. This looked like a piece of spring steel and made a little ring out of it. Pins. Okay, so yeah, this is gonna be a fun project. These being in all these pieces like this, actually looks like this is some kind of. You know what? I wonder if this is the remains of the feet. That's what it must be. These are probably the remains of the feet, and these little brass cones used to be inside the rubber like that. So you can see this here. This screw, if we take it out, Yeah, it has one of those brass cones. So these are probably what the feet used to be. See a couple more pieces of them here, actually. That's probably what that is. Okay, that's fine. A couple of those. These things, these might hold up these guys right here, the tins, or they might hold up this. I have to see. This should go in something. Actually, this probably goes right on the bottom of the carriage bed plate, actually. This piece goes over in this side. So that has the counter thing there. So this is sliding because depending on which position you have the carriage in, you want to increment a different a different counter position. So this is what slides along like this. This goes on here like this. And then so whatever position you're pointing to is the one that the little peg down there increments. That's that. I don't know what this is. We'll figure that out as we go along. I'm not sure what that one's for. Those are, your generic spacers, bolt screws, big screws. Yeah. This doesn't bother me, by the way. This is usually how I organize my parts when I'm working on something, so I just throw them all in a pile and then figure it out as I go. And this thing goes on the front for the ratchet. So we're still going to see what goes in here. There should be some square piece that sticks out the front. This is it. So this goes on here. Should go on here, something like that. Might be a little dirty, but that's fine. So that goes on there, something like that. And then this peg probably goes either in here. Yes. There we go. That's that solved. That's what you're. Well, I jammed it somehow. Probably because like nothing is actually, as it should be, but it's fine. So that's fine. Have to figure this spring out. Here's the other piece here. This should be spring loaded in this position with the extra length that should be there. But anyway, that's something to figure out. So yeah, I think that'll be good for part one. I think the first thing that I'm going to do with this, not part one, like not video one, but just for this part. First thing I'm going to do with this is see what we can do about this. A couple of these are stuck. We'll have to see. I'll probably bolt down at least this piece, leave this loose, and then that will give us a better test setup to test fit this. We can, pop it in and out of there pretty easy, hopefully. And test how it's going to fit with the counter there. So, yeah. First step is going to be making this fit, and then once this fits properly, we can move on to everything else. So yeah, this should be the only part that's going to require real work. Like if you look around, there's really not that much else here. If we take a whole overview, like that's it. That's all, well, plus this piece, of course. It's all the parts that go into it. So, it's really not a huge number of parts when you actually think about it. Most of the parts are concentrated in, the counter, the pinwheel mechanism, or the moving segment, whatever you want to call it, modified pinwheel, and the accumulator. Because like in here, for each digit, you've got the digit plus the carry trip plus the carry trip detent plus the driver digit here. For each of those you got that, so that multiplies the parts pretty quick. But without looking at just the the overview, it's really not that many parts in total that we have to put back together here. So yeah, this should be a fun project. Yeah, so a couple things. See, I've kind of mocked this together just to see how bad our problem actually is. But before we get into that, I don't think in the last segment I completely explained the history of this machine. Um, so I think this came from, or I bought this off eBay, but I think one of my viewers may have put it on eBay. Didn't actually verify, but around the time this came up on eBay, one of my viewers commented on my channel that they had a Marchant XL machine like this, and that it had the problem with the drum, and that they were going to fix it the right way, which means, which the right way would be, to take measurements and get these parts, these pot metal discs here, remade out of some appropriate material like aluminum or steel or whatever. I would take the measurements and get new parts machined. But they decided that would be too expensive, and that's why they put it up on eBay for sale. Like I said, I haven't verified that this is actually that machine. It just came up on eBay around the same time. So I bought it knowing that it had this issue and that they didn't want to spend the money to get it fixed. So I decided to see if I could fix it in a less correct but hopefully still functional manner. So I just wanted to clear that up. Anyway, so you see I put this in here and it actually spins pretty free, which kind of surprised me. Usually the issue with these is these discs swell up so much that they hit on the gears in there. You can see my pointing apparatus. You can see these are the bottom of the gears here that drive the carry register, or the counter register rather. And usually these discs swell up so much they hit against those gears and jam this whole drum from turning. As you can see, it actually turns through there, and there seems to be ample space too. See, we saw some scrape marks on some of these, right? Let's see what we can find out. There we go. So right there is a scrape mark. See if that gets. So there's one tight spot. I'll get that in a minute. So even that is, decently far away. Kind of surprises me. And this is in the right spot because you can see how. See if I can pop one of these down here. Pop it down, yeah. So you can see how. Well, you start there. Alright, so you can see how that popped down there now. Right there, this one popped down. You can see how this one's, this back a little bit. So you can see, actually two of these are down, I must have hit both of them. So you can see how this one's up. You can see the space between the bottom of this and the drum. You can see how these two are down. So I must have turned two of them past zero, but that's fine. So what's going to happen is, as this turns around, you can see how it pushes this over into the next one, and it turned the next wheel one position. Now the same thing's going to happen in the next column. See that thing down there pushed the peg over, the peg engages with the gear and turns it the next column one position. And then there's cams here that pop them back up into place so that they don't hit the next time it comes around. And that's the basic operation. Like I said, usually these discs swell up so much that it runs right into these gears, and this thing locks right up, you can't even turn it. So this is actually in a lot better shape than I had initially imagined, so I'm pretty happy about that. Like usually these, puff right up and jam, so that's pretty good actually. So the only issue then that we have to fix is the three of these pegs that are jammed, and the one, oh yeah, see this one is jammed. So that's one that we must have hit the carry on last time, then it got jammed and wanted to hit it again, but that's fine. Like we said, we have to fix those anyway. So we have to fix those two that are jammed, and we have to fix this tight spot. Now the tight spot is this cam in the last position hitting on the bottom of the carry in the last column. Which is really weird to me because usually it's the discs that swell up and expand and hit into things, but this cam here is steel. So I find that rather interesting that that's the part that's causing the issue. And this piece here doesn't look damaged at all. Like, I don't think it's sticking down any further than the one next to it. They look, this and this look to be about the same, I think. So I find that kind of surprising. I can take a closer look at the bottom of the carriage and make sure this one isn't extending out anymore. But I find it interesting. Let's see if we, so we can set it there. Yeah, and it returns fine. It's just a little tiny bit. Oh, this must be. Yeah, this is another one of the jammed ones. Yeah, so it's just that a little bit there. I have to figure out. So since it's like so close, I might just take a little file and file this down just a little tiny bit. It's really not much at all that it needs to go. So yeah, this is actually in a lot better shape than I was anticipating. Just have to fix this little cam here, the tight spot, and then those 3 pegs that are jammed, and hopefully that's all it should need. Now in the last segment I mentioned this piece. I couldn't figure out where it went. I figured out where it went. So this piece here is the shift fork for the carry transmission. The counter transmission. I keep calling it a carry. It's the counter transmission. So basically the idea is this drum rotates free on this shaft. This is where the crank goes. So this shaft has a gear that comes out this side. You see that turning there? Let me get this out of the way. No, we can't get it out of the way. There we go. You can see that gear there turns this gear, and will also turn this gear on the side of the lever set mechanism. So this gear should be in here on this shaft attached to the drum. So this gear turns this gear down here on the bottom, which has a gear on the other side, and which also turns this gear right here. So basically this slides back and forth, either engages with the bottom gear down here or this gear on the side. So when it engages with the bottom gear, it turns this drum one direction. When it engages with this side gear, it turns the drum the opposite direction. And then this shift fork goes on here, like that, and that slides it back and forth to engage the different gears. Now, when we're looking at this drum initially, I pointed out this little bite mark here, or cutout, or whatever you want to call it. I'll call it a bite mark. Basically, it's just like a little cutout in the drum. And I said it was for the carriage lockout, but that's not correct. This one over here, you see that one's got a little bite taken out of it right there. That's for the carriage lockout. This one over here is for the transmission lockout. So this piece goes on the end of this shaft, like that, and then this shaft would go in here, and then this piece is what goes and slides in and out of there. So so you can only switch the counter direction when it's in the home position. So it's important to know that, because it'll help with the timing. Like if you set this so that this drum is in the home position, say here, then you'll never be able to change the counter direction when the crank's in the home position. You'll have to bring it out until this bite mark lines up and then change it. So that's important to know. The hardest thing about these Marchant machines is the timing. On all the different ones that I've worked on, I've never been able to find any sort of timing marks on anything. So it's always been like a trial and error of getting everything, timed appropriately to work properly. So knowing this will help us time this drum so we know where it has to be in the home position in order to work properly. And this shaft should go in like this. It goes in, there's a little hole here and a little hole here that it goes into. You can can see right here, isn't like that, but on the other side. On the other side of that. Now, I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a ball bearing spring tension in that hole. And actually, looks like there's a screw on the top, so hopefully we can take it out. That's for the detent there, so I can get this out of here. Looks like no, so I can lift it up. Oh, I want the ball bearing. Of course, I can't really see what I'm doing because the camera is right in front of it here. Can get this out of here, maybe. No. Alright, I'll have to get that out of there then. For some reason it doesn't want to come out. My camera is right in the way. Move this over here. You get a magnet or something. Anyway, so that has to come out of there. Get that out there somehow. And then that ball bearing spring loads into either of these two grooves here, and that detents the shift fork in the correct place. Now this cutout here, I think I mentioned this before, is for, I'll get rid of this. This thing is not in the correct position somehow. Is for this thing, goes on like that, and then this moves it in and out. This thing is supposed to be angled the opposite. Something's up with this. I need to figure out what's going on. Maybe it goes on like this. There we go. So that probably goes on like that. And then this goes up like this, so that that's hitting on something. But anyway, that's basically the idea there. And then this is spring loaded to hold this piece down against the bottom of the case for your clearing. So that pretty much explains that. The only other mystery pieces, we have like this little spacer here. I'm sure that will become apparent. This little spacer here. This thing here, given the size of it, I'm assuming goes on the lever set drum somewhere. To see about that, looks like it fits on there. We'll go with that. But yeah, other than that, I don't think we really have any other mystery pieces anymore. So that's good. Make sure I don't lose that ball bearing. So the guy that took this apart, I'm not 100% sure why he took some of these apart. Like, I don't. Like these two pieces here really didn't have to come apart that I can see. Like there shouldn't be anything on this shaft that I'm aware of that would have to come off, and there doesn't seem to be any like ride marks on here or anything would have been riding on it. So like I'm not sure why he took that piece off. That part could have stayed on, because when you take the side off, then you can just like pull this out. There's like nothing that holds this in other than that detent, and then it just has one hole that it slides in the side of the case and one hole that it slides in the center support, and that's about it. So I don't know, not sure. Anyway, we'll put it back together. Something else that I noticed is this piece, the case. You can see how this side has a nice round curve here. This side looks more flattened, so I'm assuming this took a hit in shipping and kind of got flattened. We'll have to see if we can round that back out so that it goes on. Yeah, see, it doesn't match up with that shape at all. Versus on this side, well, it's still gonna be harder to see, but this is the wrong side, but much nicer fit there. So this covers the whole thing. So I can this on here, like so. So yeah, you can see, maybe you can't see. Now you can see not much nicer fit on that side. So it has to get fixed. Hopefully it won't be too hard to fix. The probably thing, yeah, this thing just spring-loaded off of there again. So anyway, so just a couple things I wanted to mention so far. So like I said before, first thing I'm going to do is file that cam down a little bit so that it clears there freely, and then make sure the little carry tabs are freed up, and I think from there, hopefully it should just be reassembly from there. And also we have to fix the spring, but we can do a good deal of the assembly before we find a replacement spring for this. That's not a huge deal. The only thing that this would prevent from going back together is the carriage bed plate. But we can put together like all of the counter drive mechanism, all the moving segment drum mechanism, all that stuff can go back together. It's just this piece, and sliding the carriage back on, and this piece. But everything else should be able to go back together without that spring. So I'll have to see if I can find a replacement for that. But that's enough talking now. Let's actually do some work. Okay, so I think I may have spoken a little bit too soon when I said that this drum was fine, and aside from these things getting stuck, and that it wasn't going to hit anything. It's true that it wasn't swollen enough to hit the carry drive gears down here, but when I started fitting it back in to test it with the actual counter drive, which is this piece right here, that little peg there that spins around, this little peg here was hitting against the drum, so it has swelled enough to hit against this. So spent quite a bit of time trying to remedy that issue, and what I ended up doing was just chipping out the sections here that had swelled up. You could have filed them or ground them. I found it much simpler and easier to just do this because you really don't need the drums, like you don't need this material here, it's not doing anything. You just need the support here around these things. And yeah, this one doesn't have the support there, but this one here doesn't have the support there. But this is fine because it actually drives this way. So when the drum's in the machine and is actually activating the carry, it's going to be driving this way against the carry tab's going to pop down. It's going to drive up against this, and it's going to hit and push over that way. So this being not here is fine. This spring shouldn't pop out. It's got a little detent in the rod there that holds it in place, so that shouldn't be an issue. Nice and free, and like I said, it drives this way, so there's plenty of support this side to hold that up. Another issue that I was facing was when I actually put the drum in the machine to test out the carries. Even though the pieces were smooth enough, like moving them like this, when they were in the machine and the machine drives them, back against whatever it's driving them against. Let's see, which ones were the issue? Is it these ones? That must have been these ones. So the way that this works is, like, looking at this side, the drive is towards the middle. So these carries will work when the drum's rotating this way, and it'll hit against that and carry. These carries work when the drum's rotating this way, so it'll hit against that and carry. So you see on like this piece here, both of these carries are driven back against the middle piece here, and then goes all the way across. So like the carries here are driven apart from the middle piece because they're just like they've wrapped all the way around basically. So like they drive this way, this way, this way, then you get all the way around. It's that way, apart from that small piece of it. Anyway, so the issue that I was having was in the machine. See, this is one that we fixed. I think, sure, this was the other one with the issue, or whichever one of these had the issue. I think it was this one. when you could push it fine like this, but when it was actually in the machine and the machine drove it back against that, it would jam and wouldn't push over. There was too much friction there. So that requires some more cleanup. This requires some more cleanup. These should be fine now. Tested some. I haven't tested all of them in the machine yet because they needed some additional cleanup last time I tried them. But I think they should all be good now. They feel, pretty free when they're pushed back against the back panel there. So hopefully that should be taken care of. I have tested all of these. All these are fine. As far as clearance against the carry tooth there. So I think we should be good on this drum now, hopefully. I will put it back in and double check, make sure that all the carries work fine and everything like that, but I think that this piece should be usable now. It's kind of interesting when you look at this, how some of these, like even this one, you can see right here how badly that's swollen and the giant cracks that are appearing in it. And look at the one right next to it, and it's perfectly fine. It hasn't swollen at all. Like in here, this one needs some significant material removal. This one needs some significant material removal. This one's perfectly fine. It's a little warped, but as far as swelling, there is like none at all. And both of the carry tabs are fine on that one. So it's kind of interesting. I wonder what the difference is between the ones that swell and the ones that don't swell. Whether they're from different batches of metal, or what exactly the deal is. So I think with the very first one, that's perfectly fine too. No swelling whatsoever. So it's kind of interesting. And I wonder, whether these are going to continue to swell or whether they've reached their, maximum swelling. Like as, 50 years from now, is this one going to swell up and need material removal here? It's kind of weird the way that this pot metal works, but anyway, so there's that. You can talk about the timing of this machine. Take some of these pieces out I was just playing around with there. So if we look, actually this whole thing can come off of here. So this gear here is what goes on the end of this shaft. You can see there's a keyway there and there's a key on the shaft here that fits in there. This gear is driven either by this gear or this gear, and this gear is driven by this gear. So that just depends on whether you're in forward or reverse. This is a shaft that goes through to the other side here, and I'm keeping this tilted this way because this can fall out at any moment, to this gear, which is attached to the disc here for the carry interlock. And then this gear is driven by this gear, which runs all the way through here, all the way through the center of the drum, and then out, and then the crank goes on the end of that. So this gear has to be timed with this gear so that when the drum is installed, the notch out here lines up with the transmission lockout at the same time that the notch out there is in the appropriate place to line up with the carriage lockout. So that's the first timing. Something I'm going to get a camera out of memory there, but what I was saying was when you drive the counter, it has to push the carry tab down at a place where it's going to be able to push into the low spot and not hit against the high spot. And it also has to be such that the carry tab pushes down in between these two. Because if you try to push it down against one of these, it's also not going to work. And if you manage to get it, in this little tiny spot off to the side here, well, then it's going to pop down and then pop right back up as the drum rotates, and then it's never going to affect any carry. So it has to pop down in between here, so that when this rotates, like when you're rotating this direction, this carry tab will carry and pop it back up. And if the drum's rotating this direction, then it'll hit this carry tab, do the carry, and then the tab will pop back up when it hits this ramp on this side. So that's the timing of this piece. Like I said, there is no timing marks on these. that I've been able to find anyway. So, and even if there was, you know, when this gear is in, when this drum is installed, it's like that. So how are you even going to see? It's like way up in there. You really can hardly even see any kind of timing marks anyway. So it's not the easiest process. It is kind of annoying, but you know, usually you try it once, it doesn't work, take it apart, put it together, try a little different position, and eventually you can get it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if I can get everything timed finally and test all of the carries and counter increments in each position here, and hopefully that will mean that's done. Something else that you have to know when you put this together for the final time, just kind of, there we go, when you put this in for the final time, you have to install this piece, because you can't, when you put, after you put the side on, you can't get this piece in. So this goes, I believe, right here, and this is the carriage release. You probably won't know that way. So this will stick out the side of the machine, and then you push this in, and then you can grab the carriage and move it wherever you want. That's the release for that. This also has to go in. This is the lever segment release, and that goes in. She goes in right like this. Little hole here. Goes in right like this, and then the spring and the cap go on like that, and then this is there's a little pin that goes here to hold this on here. So this is spring loaded back, and what that does is it spring loads back and then locks. It locks all of these pieces in place. See, it goes behind. I think it goes right behind here. That disc goes right behind here, and when it springs back, that it has like a little lip that goes under here, so this can't rotate back. And then when it goes forward, it releases this. This can rotate back and release all of these. And what pushes on that is the plunger here on the crank. This is spring loaders. So when you pull the crank out to release it from this hole here on the side, that's the end of this, goes in the other side of this hole, and the crank latch goes in here. And when you pull the crank out to start turning it, this piece springs forward and locks the not really ratchets, but the detents on the setting segments, so that you can't rotate the settings, or you can't change the setting while the crank's not in the home position. That's something that has to go on before the side goes on. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you get everything in time, put the side on, and then you realize you didn't put one of these in, you have to take everything back apart again, and then redo the time when you put it back together for the final time. So make sure that you install both of these. And that should be everything you would have to install. This piece will go in this hole right here. That hole there is for this piece, and this you can put it later. This goes through here, and then the end of that screws onto this, and that is what slides the, it's not going to work now, but that goes on there like that, and that's what slides the carry finger back and forth on that shaft. This goes on there like that, and then these teeth are driven by this gear, which is driven by the carriage. So that just aligns the counter with whatever position the carriage happens to be in. So hopefully I can, and this has a taper pin that goes in, and I'll put the taper pin back in. But actually that wouldn't even have to be done now. It'll probably be done later, assuming I can get in there when the drum was in there. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is see if I can put this back on for the final time, hopefully. And then once that's on, the timing of this piece is done separately when you put the carriage back on. Now, something else I wanted to notice, it looks like this hole was drilled out here. This is the hole that lets you get in to take the screw off the end of this rod. And I don't think it's supposed to be that big, and you can see it looks pretty shiny on the inside, like somebody drilled it out. So I'm assuming they didn't have a small enough screwdriver to get in there and get at that screw. I remember from working on my other Marchant XL, it required a rather small screwdriver to get in there, but anyway, it's not important. So let's see if we can get this together and hopefully do a little demonstration of the counter working. That would be nice. Alright, so I got this all back together. Seems to be timed correctly. I put the crank handle back on and I'm using a paper towel there so I don't get oil completely saturated all over the crank handle. And now, move some of this out of the way. And go backwards and it carries all the way across. Go forwards and it carries all the way across. So, all of our carries are working. We're timed properly with the first digit, because that's the one with the tightest tolerance, so you have to get that right in there, and as you can see, it increments and decrements, and we can keep going. So that counts. We can slide all the way over to, this one is the next tight, is on the other side, but that one works fine too. So far it looks like we are going to be successful with the drum anyway. And when I put this back together, it did have a little bitty issue. Turn this around. Let me see. I don't remember exactly. I think it was this one here. This one here. See how that's kind of messed up there. So this one, I think either this piece or this piece, one of these pieces actually came off, and I glued it back in to give it the support that it needed. But it had popped out like a little bit in the back, like this, the back groove, the back side of this was sticking out a little bit, and was preventing the carry chip in the next column from coming down. So I just filed that a little bit, and now it works fine both directions. So pretty happy about that. Gives me good confidence that this machine is going to be fine. Assuming that we're not, missing a major piece. Not that I've really noticed anything missing so far, but so yeah. I think I'm going to split the video here. I know this isn't very long, but it's actually been quite a bit of time put into getting this to fit. Which in taking it out, chiseling a little bit, filing a little bit, putting it back in, no, it still doesn't work, take it back out again. Because every time you do that, you have to re-get everything lined up, and it's kind of an annoying process. I didn't show on camera how I put this back together, but what I did was, you saw how I had the sliding transmission gear sat back in there with the fork in there. So I just slid the drum in and let the drum kind of hang there. With the drum hanging there, then I lined up, there's 2 dowel pins on the side of this assembly and the crank handle that have to go through this side. And then the shaft with the carry finger on it, or the counter finger on it, has to get lined up with both sides. So I stuck the shaft in this side, and I kind of leaned this up a little bit, and then lean this a little bit, trying to keep the shaft staying in there while I lined up the crank handle and the 2 dowel pins and the other end of this shaft in here. And then once I got those lined up and kind of slid into place, then I just wiggled this end of the shift fork shaft into place there, and then it kind of just fits together, and the dowel pin on the bottom of the side falls in the bottom. And then once that's all in, then with this loose, I'm able to pull this back a little bit so that it's free from the intermediate gear on the side plate, and that gives me the freedom to time the counter finger shaft. And then once I get that in time, then I just slide this up to mesh with that gear, and then the shaft slides through the middle of this, and then times, with the crank handle to make sure that the crank handle is in the right position when this is in the home position. You can see our transmission shifts fine. So yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with this so far. Pretty confident that we're going to get this working. So the rest of this really isn't too complicated. This is the main complicated part, is getting all of this timed and set right. The main drive drum here shouldn't be too hard to time. That will slide in somewhere around here and mesh with the gear there. But this can only go in one position, because you can see this side has a gear. Oh, that's loose. I have to tighten that. Has a gear with a cutout in it, and this cutout has to be facing straight up. The cutout there has to be facing straight up when it's in the home position, because this ratchet has to be straight down, and then that divot kind of like goes around the bottom of this ratchet, and then when you turn it, this will ratchet, so you can't turn it backwards in the middle of a cycle. But in the home position, the divot has to be there so you can turn it either direction. If you mess that up, then it's going to be a really weird effect where you can only turn the crank handle one way from the home position until you've turned it a certain distance, and then you could turn it back the other way. That would just be incredibly strange. Yeah, so that shouldn't be too hard to do. I ended up only putting one of these little brass shims in here. I started with two and it was kind of tight, so I took one out, and you can see there's a tiny little bit of play there. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. Nothing excessive, and it's pretty loose. So we have two more of these shims that we don't know where they go. I don't think anything went here. Well, maybe one was supposed to. But that's not a high stress item. There's a little bit of play on the counter finger shaft. Flip this back around. So yeah, this has a little bit of play, but I'm not going to be too worried about that. That's nothing super excessive. Not going to be too worried about that. We'll see if we can use both of those brass shims on the main slider drum. Let's see if that's going to be too tight, or if we just need one. We'll see when we get there. So what has to go back on here yet? We have the main drum that goes here. We have these pieces. When I found out where this went, was that loose spacer that goes on the end here. Either this side or the other side. We'll see when we put it in how things line up. These go here. The spring bracket bolts down there, and then that goes there. These things go here. There should be another one here somewhere. Though they hold up that assembly. We have our little ball bearing. Don't use that. The spring and the plug that go in our transmission detent mechanism. I'll have to put those back in. Probably once I get the main drum, and I'll put that in, because it'll make it easy to align this, the tab here that slides that back and forth, would make it easy to align without the detent in there. We have this piece that goes here. We have this piece that goes here, that bolts onto the bottom of the carriage plate. Still have to find a replacement spring for that. We have this piece that I've already showed where that goes. Same with this piece. Carriage bed plate, of course, and the carriage itself back there. Then we've got the clearing crank handle. and the rest is just some screws, and this piece is the cleaning mechanism. So, like I said, there's not really a whole lot to these machines. Now, if you start taking the carriage apart and start taking the slider mechanism, drum apart, you're going to run into small pieces, but there's a lot of repetition there too. Like, all the carriage positions are basically the same pieces. There's just a lot of them because there's like 20 positions. But as far as like overall assemblies and intermediate parts, there's not really a whole lot to these machines. Yeah, so that's gonna be the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed this so far, and we'll see if we can finish putting this back together in the next video and get a working machine. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.